Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Coach John Mango, and I am back repping Beyond the Iron as always, here to bring you a video because now that this whole lockdown situation is over, and if you're like me and you lost all your damn gains, okay, and you're ready to just throw in the towel, all right, well, there's no need to do that because now that things are looking up, all right, now that the God of gains has blessed us once again, or at least is beginning to bless us once again, it's time to get our shit back on track. So again, if you're like me and you didn't have access to a gym for the last several months, well, I guess if you're like everybody else around the world, then you likely lost a lot of gains, especially if you're advanced or intermediate, even if you're a beginner. You know, obviously everybody watching this has some sort of routine with going to the gym that may have been broken at some point throughout the last several months. So what we're going to talk about today is just quickly, briefly break down how you can go about getting these gains back, and that's exactly how I did it too. Now keep in mind, it's going to be a very basic rundown, nothing too crazy, okay, not any scientific literature supporting this, that, and the other in this case, just raw experience, practical tips, tricks, strategies that are malleable to your situation. All right, so before these comments come in like, this makes no sense, this is not scientifically proven, I'm telling you right off the bat, if you're looking for the most scientific approach, you're eventually just going to miss the fact that you just need to take action in the right direction, which is what this video is going to be about. Now, real quick before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so. Leave a like, comment below, and follow me on Instagram as well. Send me a message out there because I always love following up with all my supporters and subscribers. Thanks for watching the video. Now, we're going to talk about the two different components that you need to be worrying about here. Obviously, nutrition, number one, and then afterwards, we're going to talk about the workout side of things and basically how to acclimate. You see, a lot of people, when they get back into things, they want to go full blast. And I understand the temptation, I do, but it's not in your best interest most of the time. And especially when it comes to the nutrition side, you might be just generally confused as to how to go about it depending on your specific situation. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. I'm just going to zoom this out a little bit so you can see apparently I didn't adjust this camera well enough. Hopefully you can see this whiteboard quite clearly, but I'm going to walk you through it real quick. This is the nutrition aspect first and foremost, okay? We're going to talk calories, macros, and how to track, measure progress, make sure that we get these results back and then even surpass them as quickly as possible. Now, first and foremost, I will say the following. It was about 3 months of straight lockdown time. If you hadn't been lifting weights for all 3 months like myself, I actually started about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. If, let's say, you've been detrained for a certain amount of months, in this case 3, oftentimes it's going to take roughly about half that same amount of time to get back to where you were previously. Could be more or less depending on the situation, the individual, but the point is it's going to take around half the time because of the powerful effect of muscle memory, which, you know, thank you, Lord of Gains, for giving us that. Now, let's go ahead with that in mind and talk about the calories. So first and foremost, should you be in a deficit or a surplus? Well, that's highly dependent upon what happened to you over the several months of getting detrained. Of course, this can apply to more than just this lockdown situation. In any situation where you end up being detrained, maybe after an injury, anything like this, if you lost muscle and lost weight in general for the most part from not lifting, okay, this is the situation I found myself in. What you're going to want to do is actually put your calories into a slight surplus. Of course, this does mean that you need to start tracking these calories, get a handle on them, and increase into a surplus slightly. We don't want to go into too aggressive of a surplus and just start getting body fat back, okay? We want to be in a relative surplus to the calories we have, okay? I would say 10 to 15% surplus, maybe 20, you know, start blasting weights in your advanced or intermediate. If you're a beginner, a slight surplus, if you lost muscle, is your way to go. And ultimately that's because we want to fuel the muscle that's going to come back, okay? Obviously it still needs fuel, and if you lost the muscle and weight, you're probably relatively lean, which means it's okay to have a buffer putting on potential little bit of body fat. Now, a deficit would be for the opposite scenario. If you gained fat and gained weight throughout this period of time, okay? This highly depends on genetics and lifestyle, and you know, some people are endomorphic, some people are ectomorphic. I would be an example of an ectomorph. that's going to depend on where you find yourself after being detrained for several months. So if you gained a lot of body fat, you want to go into a deficit, because even if you lost muscle throughout this process while gaining body fat, going into the deficit will force your body to start burning fat while doing what we talk about on the flip side of this chart with the workouts. You will gain muscle in the process. Remember, this is one of the rare times you can actually gain muscle and lose fat at the same time at a very rapid rate. Make sure you take advantage of that, and a deficit is what you're going to want to do to achieve it. And also, if starting to work out again, then like let's say you went from just not working out entirely, even if you gained body fat, you may want to keep calories a little bit higher if you suddenly start blasting the weights again, because keep in mind that's going to raise your total calorie expenditure throughout the day a lot. So I hope that makes sense. So just to recap here, a surplus is ideal. A relatively big surplus, okay, around let's say 20% calorie surplus or 15% on your daily calories should be the target if you mainly lost muscle and weight. If you gained fat and weight and presumably also probably lost some muscle, you still want to go into a deficit. The body fat itself will fuel the muscle memory and gain back of the muscle. And if you're just going from basically not working out at all to working out again with weights, relatively high volume because you're a beginner or intermediate, then you might look at being at a maintenance or slight surplus even if you gained weight. Hope that makes sense. So intermediates and advanced, going from not lifting at all to lifting again, minimum 3 or 4 days a week, hard, heavy, your metabolism is going to jack up very quickly. So keep that in mind. A deficit may not be where you want to go with that. Now let's talk about macros. Very straightforward when it comes to protein. In all scenarios, keep protein high. How high does high mean? Of course, this is a very individual question. However, I recommend generally a range of around 1 gram per pound of body weight. I personally am going higher to around 1.1 grams per pound of body weight on some days. Keep in mind, a higher protein diet is favorable for body composition, especially if a lot of that protein is being used towards the muscle memory and gaining back of muscle and strength. Again, people are gonna come on here, freak the hell out. Oh my God, that's too much protein. You don't need that much. You don't need that much. This is just a recommendation, and it's likely in your best interest for body composition purposes, at least for the time being, to bring protein up closer to that level. Okay, you can get away with less for sure, but if we want to maximize the return of gains, then this is in your best interest. 1 gram per pound of body weight is a good general guideline for that. Now for fats, if you are going into a deficit, I would recommend around 25% just to make sure you hit that baseline to take care of the hormones. If you are going into a surplus, then you can bring that up to 30% because we don't want to overload on carbs right away. Slowly we might start bringing those up. Keep in mind this is a range, right? You could go 25% too, depending on how your body reacts to certain things. I personally am at around a 26% fat ratio right now. So, again, it's just gonna be somewhere in this range regardless of what your calories are. And then the carbs, you need to fill in the rest of your calories with the carbs. So once you subtract how many calories come from protein and fats, the rest divide by 4, you've got your carbs. But of course, you need to figure out the calorie aspect of things first. You always have to figure out calories first before you can figure out macros. If you don't know that, you haven't watched my content. I've got 500 videos explaining this shit. So what are you really doing? Subscribe if you haven't yet, because you got to learn all this. Next is tracking. Tracking is very important. Tracking the progress to monitor, keep your finger on the pulse to make sure you're moving in the right direction of gaining everything back and basically picking up where you left off before the whole lockdown. That's ultimately the goal here, so that you can start moving ahead from that point as quickly as possible. So tracking is going to be important for that. Body weight. How much weight gain should you be looking at for a surplus, assuming that a lot of this coming back is muscle with the right workout programming? I would say a gain of between 1 to 2 pounds per week. Keep in mind this should not go on for a very long time, because I'm assuming you didn't lose 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months and you're not trying to gain 20 pounds of muscle back in 10 weeks. Okay, you likely lost maybe at most 5 maybe 10 pounds, okay? In my case, closer to that 5 to 10 pound range, or closer to that 10 pound range. So I am gaining at about a pound to 2 pounds a week for just a few weeks to ramp things up. My strength is flying, everything comes along with it if everything's on point, and you'll be good. But keep in mind, this doesn't last long. The surplus, the deficit, it shouldn't last too long. We're just trying to bring that baseline back up, bring the metabolism back to where it should be while you're lifting weights with the certain amount of muscle you had previously. Deficit, I would definitely expect a loss of 1 pound per week. You don't want to go too fast here if you're in this group that gained body fat. The reason being is you're going to be gaining muscle back as you're cutting. So if you're losing at 2 pounds per week, you're likely putting a ceiling on how fast the muscle you're trying to gain back is going to come back. So keep that in mind. A loss of 1 pound per week is ideal in this case. Oftentimes I'd say 1 to 3 pounds a week on a normal cut. This isn't your normal cut. Let's assume you're losing 2 pounds of body fat a week, but you're gaining 1 pound of muscle a week, which is actually possible when you're advanced like me and have lost some muscle and can gain it back that quick. Yes, 1 pound of muscle gain per week is a possibility for sure when recompositioning, especially from an advanced or intermediate standpoint. So a loss of around 1 pound per week should be. Notice the theme here, taking things easy, taking things slow. No need to worry about it, no need to overthink it. You will make these gains back as long as you do it in a smart way. Progress pictures you should be taking every week or every 2 weeks. Again, this is a little quicker than normal just to make sure everything's filling out the way it should, getting back to that point. Once again, measurements are going to be the same thing. Next, we're going to talk about the workouts real quick. I'm going to flip this around, and keep in mind, this isn't scientific type stuff necessarily. There's some programming that goes on, but it's very basic stuff, because when you're in a detrained position, especially as an intermediate or especially as an intermediate or advanced lifter, you will gain everything back at an extremely rapid pace when done correctly. How many times have I said it in this video so far? I'm not sure. I'm going to look it back and count. Maybe we'll make a drinking game out of it. Drinking protein shakes, of course. Now, for your workout split, this is a common one I always get, okay? John, what split should I follow? What do you think about this split? What do you think about? Listen, split, very simple. If you're a beginner, you should be 3 days a week, full body workouts, not grouped together. Put 1 day of rest in between each. So look, you're a beginner, by the way. If you've been lifting effectively, proper programming and nutrition, building at least 2 pounds of muscle per month, as the newbie gains allow you to do, until month 12. So if you're below month 12 of proper lifting and nutrition combined, then you are a beginner, in which case you should pick up with 3 days a week full body split. Just pick up from there. Obviously focusing on compounds, mainly compounds. We're going to talk reps and sets in a bit here. If you're a beginner or intermediate and you are more used to a higher frequency split, which is typically the case, 5-day, 6-day splits, I would recommend getting back with a 4-day split. So grouping things together, because again, there's no need to just jump into this massive amount of volume. In fact, that's the worst thing you can do. And let me explain why real quick. When you jump back into things with massive amounts of volume, so let's say I don't hit legs for 3 months, and then I come in and I blast legs. I'm not even kidding. Your legs will take such a beating that it could negatively impact muscle gain, meaning you won't gain back as much muscle because the fibers are so torn down. Second, you're going to risk injury, like a high risk of injury. Third, you're going to be sore for at least a week, maybe even 2. Like, I'm just thinking, if I tried the same volume or close to the same amount of volume of a leg day that I did previous to 3 months of not training, I will literally be stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, okay? Bury me under the gym, because I'll be dead. So go back at it slow. You'll gain quicker if you do so. 4-day-a-week split is what I personally did, and what seems to be the perfect balance, where you're doing an upper-lower split, okay? And you're going to acclimate from there. What I would recommend is for about 4 weeks in this particular case, probably in any detrained case, assuming it's several months, I would say 4 weeks at a 4-day split before you reassess and decide to acclimate and further increase. I personally started at a 4-day split for 4 weeks. After week 4, I was feeling good. Soreness has severely diminished. Gains have severely come back. And so I moved up to a 5-day split. Now we're looking at reps and sets. Very straightforward stuff here, guys. If you're looking to gain muscle mainly, so you are mainly about muscle mass gain over strength, then 2 to 3 sets to start. So upper, lower, or full body, just focusing on compounds. When it comes to the upper, lower, you can add some isolation in if you'd like. It's not the biggest of deals. Compound is what matters. You're trying to get your front squat back to where it was. You're trying to get your bench back to where it was. Your bicep curl and all that, that's easy to get back to where it was, okay? Because that's coming along with when you're doing those chins, when you're getting the weighted chins back to where they were, when you're getting the squat back to where it was, the deadlift, the bench press, the incline dumbbell, the rows, these types of things, the isolation will naturally follow suit. But if you're on a full body split, don't waste too much time on the isolation stuff. Just stick with the compounds, 2 to 3 sets, 6 to 12 reps, okay? You want to keep them all there. No fancy things, not going for 3s or 5s on your main compound just yet. Not going for crazy 20 rep sets with massive amounts of volume as a result. Keep it 6 to 12. Keep it basic, keep it simple, 2 to 3 sets. Your acclimation will be keeping the same reps and sets, okay? Keeping within this range and adding weight week to week, as you should be able to do so, assuming nutrition's on point. And once you are basically starting to plateau on the weight, let's say by week 3, you're noticing the weight gain on your lifts was like this, and now it's tapering off a little bit. Add a set to increase volume, to acclimate your body to that volume before you switch to let's say a 5-day split or a 6-day, and you start adding some isolation on top of the compounds. Now you're all of a sudden you're back to 4 sets, and 3 sets, and super sets, and 20 rep sets, and 5x5s, and all that stuff. That's how you want to do it. And strength, relatively the same, 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 12. You're probably thinking, isn't strength higher sets, lower reps? It is, but because you're detrained, you can't lift nearly as much as you used to. And if you go very low reps, high weight, coming back detrained, you're gonna fry your nervous system. You're gonna be extremely sore. You're gonna be fried for, again, could be even a week, could be more. So you want to actually get your muscles used to volume, a little bit higher reps before, so you can dissipate the soreness and improve your recovery before you start increasing the weight, because the weight is very nervous system taxing, as we know. So start at the same. The acclimation is you want to add 1 set every week. Okay, this is my personal recommendation based off programming I've done in the past. Add a set every week. So 2 to 3 sets. If you're doing 2 sets of 6 to 12, next week, in 2 weeks, you're going to do 3 sets. Or if you're starting with 3, you're going to do 4 sets, and so on. Every 2 weeks. So after 4 weeks, you will have added 2 more sets. So now the volume has ramped up at a good point, and you're slowly lowering reps 5 to 6 after 3 weeks. So after 2 weeks, you add a set, and then the next week when you come back with that extra set, you're going to lower the reps and increase the weight. So volume's going to go like this: add set, decrease volume, but intensity's ramping up. So here's how it goes. Intensity and volume, they're going up like this. Intensity's here, or like this, okay? This is volume. All of a sudden volume dips, but intensity keeps going, and then you bring volume back up by adding another set the week after week 3. So again, 2 weeks go by, you're gonna add a set to every exercise. Keep reps the same. You're still trying to add a weight the whole time as much as you can, but within the 6 to 12 rep range. Then week 3, you're gonna reduce the reps and increase the weight. So this is actually going to bring volume down cumulatively, slightly, and prepare you for week 4 when you add another set at higher weight. Now you're moving smoothly into a strength-based programming type of situation that you may have been in previously. I hope this makes sense, guys. I hope that I was able to bring you some valuable information with this one, and I hope that you're ready to get back to the gains like I am, like so many others are. This is a basic way to do it. Okay, like I said, you're gonna find it very, very powerful, and if you do these things correctly, if you're measuring everything, if you're tracking progress, you're being diligent with it, and you just pick up where you left off in half the time that it took for us to get to the point where we feel like we're starting over, half the time you'll be back to where you were before and ready to even surpass it. Okay, so I hope that you found it helpful. If so, hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and send me a DM if you're interested in in taking your fitness to the next level and your nutrition and your fat loss and your muscle gain, make sure that you send me a direct message on Instagram and we'll chat, set up a time to jump on a call, and determine if we'd be a good fit to help you take your fitness, your body, and your life, your confidence, your energy to the next level. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it as always. I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.